Hi, everyone, and welcome to session 1 of the Achieve More Results module. I'm Kristen Hawkins. I'm so excited to have you join me on this journey. I wanted to start off, though, with our sessions and talk about some practices that effective, high-impact nonprofits all accomplish, that they do well. So there was a book that was written a few years ago called Forces for Good. And actually our angel investor at Students for Life sent me this book. And as you all know from kind of the original story of Students for Life, I launched SFLA when I was 21. I had just turned 21. And so I didn't know a lot about leadership, strategic planning, or fundraising. I had very limited experience in all of it. And I had to learn it. And I had to learn it very quickly. So when he sent me this book, I was obviously very intrigued. I spent a lot of time reading books, writing down kind of questions for different authors and asking my mentors, following up with mentors, asking them for advice, how to handle certain situations that would come up within the organization. But I really enjoyed this book. I actually have it. It's still on my bookshelf, so I brought it. I pulled it out just for you. But what I really loved about this book was they studied different types of nonprofits, kind of across the gamut, national and local, and left and right. And they said that they found six kind of practices that high impact nonprofits implement. I'm only going to focus on 5 because one of them is very difficult when you run a national pro-life organization to do. But what I did was I kind of took those kind of 5 practices, I put them on a Post-it note, and it actually was above my desk for a number of years. And I still to this day, I can remember what's on that Post-it note just because it was there for so long. So there are 5 practices of effective nonprofits that all these high impact nonprofits can master, that they implement. I want to share them with you today. And this is kind of the Cliff Notes version of this book, but I think it's, especially as we move forward in this module, and we're going to be talking a lot about strategic planning, I want you to kind of keep these in the back of your mind when you're making those decisions about the future of the organization, how you're going to operate, how you're going to launch programs. I want you to keep some of these in mind. So the first one is advocate and serve. So what they found was that, these high impact nonprofits, not only do they serve a vulnerable population, but they also advocate for them. So there's always, there's frequently a disconnect. I think we see in local and regional groups where they'll say, we're not involved in politics. It's kind of like that politics is dirty type of kind of mindset. So we're just going to focus on serving. And while the service is great, what they found is that groups that also begin to advocate actually can end up serving more people. And it's just a cycle that continues, and that actually helps them to grow. It helps them to serve and reach more of their target vulnerable population. So I love that they're advocating and they're also serving. The second high impact nonprofit practice is one I really focus a lot of time on in my organization, and that is inspire evangelists. I think this is so important, especially when you can consider, your supporters. You have supporters that their own, their capacity to give is limited, but yet they can offer so much more, whether it's in leveraging relationships or whether they're connectors for you within the community. Maybe they're even helping you and can help you programmatically with a program that you have launched. But this is something I focus a lot of time on: is how do we inspire evangelists? I want to have folks who not only support my mission but they also feel a part of my mission. They feel a part of it. They're a part of the team. So when we have a success, when a life is saved, or when a court case is won, it's not just, good for them. It's good for us. We did that. We did that together. And that's to to this day, I think it's why we have such loyal and dedicated supporters, because they feel a part of our mission, and we've worked to make them feel a part of our mission, of including them in discussions that we have about, our strategic planning, or maybe just a new program we're launching, or having them meet the students or the folks right there on the ground. But how can you as an organization inspire evangelists, not just, use your donors just for their checkbooks, but how can you make them part of your team, and so that they become evangelists for you? They're doing your work for you, getting the word out about your organization to other like-minded people for you. It actually saves you time and money. The third practice of a high impact nonprofit is one that I have to be honest with you, it was a little difficult for me. It's nurture nonprofit networks. In fact, the reason I'm here today offering this course and writing this course is because of this. The understanding that when there are more organizations out there, and there are more high impact non-organizations out there in my field, it benefits all of us. It's an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. And this is hard because especially in Washington, D.C., there is a scarcity mindset with so many things. A new group will get launched, and the first response you'll hear out of, a leader who runs an organization in the similar field is great. Just great. And as someone who leads a nonprofit, what's going through their mind, right? It's the question of, is this going to impact us financially? Are we going to lose supporters because there's a new organization that might, have a sexier offering to folks, and they're not going to be giving to us and our tried and true programs that we know that works. They're the shiny new bright object in the room, and they're going to suck the attention out of the room for us. And I think it's a concern. And, as someone who's very competitive, I'm very competitive. I always want to make sure that while we're working with others in our field, that we and my organization, my team, is doing it the best. And that's just my personality. But this nurturing nonprofit networks is something that it almost feels counterintuitive, but it works. I have to tell you, I've seen it work so many times. And it's something that a lot of folks, a lot of leaders, a lot of organizations will not engage in because they're afraid. They operate out of that scarcity kind of mindset, that this fear of there's only so many dollars, there's only so many donors. And, if there's the more organizations that are out there, the less dollars my organization is going to receive. I actually think that's wrong. In the pro-life movement, for example, I think our problem is that the folks who have the capacity to give major gifts don't give major gifts because they're not completely convinced that we're going to be able to do what we say we're going to do, that we're going to be able to pull off the victory. And so I think that's actually the broader problem of convincing the folks who have the means, who have the capacity to believe and to witness the transformation that's happening and to see the change and the progress that's happening. But this nurturing nonprofit networks, I cannot speak more highly of it. In fact, I actually hope through this module and the training you're getting and future trainings that at some point we'll be able to do this better and nationally, of pulling all of our organizations together, whether we're national or regional or local, and finding common goals, finding projects that we can work together on that, to be honest with you, will benefit all of us. Because, the success that we have will be something that we can all fundraise off of. It's something that we can all tout and send out press releases on, or impress our supporters by, but can help us see actual change occur and to know we were part of that. And that's going to happen through partnerships. Probably about 10 years ago. It's longer than that. So a group called Alliance Defending Freedom, and you all met Josh on the masterclass. Josh worked for ADF for a number of years. A friend who's actually kind of a supporter of Students for Life, who'd been watching what we had been doing, came to our conference, loved the student conference we were doing. We were sold out. I think at the time it was like 800 students. And she approached me and she said, You have such potential here to do more. We can do more. We can make this bigger. We can grow this. What is kind of holding you back? And to be honest with you, I hadn't really envisioned what our conference could be or what it could morph into. I was just excited that we were at that level. And ADF actually came alongside Students for Life and said, okay, we're going to help you grow your conference. It's still the Students for Life conference. We're not asking you to change your name, but we're going to help you. So they helped with financially. In fact, the first, I think, 2 or 3 years that we went big, ADF shouldered the brunt of the cost because Students for Life wasn't able to make up the difference between, the measly $45 we're charging students and like the $182 or $200 it actually costs for them to attend. So ADF shouldered the brunt of that, fundraised for that to pay for the Students for Life conference, not the ADF student conference, the Students for Life conference. Now ADF obviously got prime speaking spots and were able to kind of promote what they do and how they can help students protect their First Amendment rights on campuses. And so they saw our organization as a position for growth, but they knew that the larger we grew, the more inquiries, the more cases would come to their organization. So not only did Students for Life of America, our organization, grow, we grew because of that conference, but also ADF was able to grow as well. And so it was something that it took somebody, though, who didn't have a scarcity mindset, who realized if we grew, they would grow. I've seen it with supporters. This Nurture Nonprofit Network. I had a supporter a number of years ago who would get, and I'm not lying, about 110 pieces of mail every day, fundraising mail. And then I saw a couple of times I was at his home when the mail came in. We were trying to sort it for him. And one of the things that the doctor, he was concerned about was he was giving money to organizations, and some of them I wasn't even sure they existed. He would ask me, he's like, "Do you work with this group?" And I'd say, "I don't know. It's a Liberty group. So I'm not really in that sphere. Let me research it for you." And I couldn't find contact information. I couldn't find phone numbers. It was just somebody who had a mailing list and was, I think, making money. And so what I did was I said, I sat him down one day and we made a list of all the organizations he supported, all the groups he was writing checks to. And I said, next time you come to Washington, I'll organize an event and we'll all get together. All of our organizations will get together. We'll have lunch. Everyone can give an update about what they're working on. We can brainstorm maybe some trends that we're seeing that's happening within the conservative, pro-life, liberty movement. And it was great. We actually did this quarterly for a number of years. And it was interesting to see, his giving actually shift. There were groups that he was giving to that we never could get in touch with anyone, or they just wouldn't, if we were able to get in touch with them, they wouldn't come to Washington or send a representative to be a part of this very laid back roundtable meeting. But the groups who did show up every quarter, who were there, who had lunch with us, their support, his support of them, continued to increase. That by bringing other organizations to the table, it didn't decrease his support of Students for Life. It actually only grew his affinity. So I have lots of examples of this Nurturing Nonprofit Networks. It's one of the kind of guiding principles I took away from this Horses for Good book. And it's something that as our organization continues to grow and gets into a position where we're able to do more and to give more to other organizations, we're really excited for that. I'm very personally excited for that. And I think that if we all had this abundance mindset and not a scarcity mindset, we would be able to accomplish a lot more together. All right, so 2 more to go. The next one is high impact nonprofits master the art of adaptation. As you all have seen firsthand because of the COVID-19 crisis, you need to be able to adapt. And organizations that can adapt will thrive. You'll grow. Organizations that cannot adapt will die. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal kind of shortly after the COVID quarantines began in March, And the author was predicting, and I don't know, if this holds true now, but the author was predicting that as many as 25% of American nonprofits could close their doors by the end of 2020 because of the COVID-19 crisis. Now, that's a tragedy on so many levels, not only for the organizations and the missions they're trying to accomplish, but also, for the employees and all of the vendors who work for these nonprofits. I mean, the nonprofit sector in America is huge, not to mention all of these services and all of the vulnerable peoples that nonprofits serve throughout the United States. But that was, to me, a pretty big wake-up call of really, were that many nonprofits going to be unwilling or unable to adapt to times of crisis and times of change? I like change. I actually I think that's one of the biggest things my staff gets frustrated with me about is I love to change things up. I love to question and ask, are we doing the most effective thing? Is there something we can do that could help us run this program cheaper and to reach more people and to be more effective? And I'm constantly asking those questions. So the COVID crisis actually, while it was scary, and there was a lot of unknowns, it actually served to energize me. I was working 15, 20-hour days for multiple days in a row, shifting and moving all of our, on-campus, in-person events and practices online, coming up with new ideas, testing things that I thought of before, but we never had time to implement, saying, okay, now's the time to test this out. And so that's just my personality. COVID served to kind of energize me and to really challenge me. I like the challenge. But this is something, no matter who you are, what organization you lead, you have to be able to adapt. You have to, because no matter how beautifully worded your strategic plan may be, things are going to happen. And, it was COVID this spring. It might be COVID again this fall or this winter. There might be another crisis that comes up. Are you able to pivot? Are you able to quickly move? And are you able to quickly move not only yourself, but your team? Do you have issues with your team, being hesitant to change, resistant to change, and being, to be honest with you, unwilling to change? Because if you have a team that's unwilling to change, you have a deeper problem. Because you're never going to be able to adapt or move as quickly as you would like to if your staff is unwilling to do it. So I think that's something we all right now have been thinking about, adaptation and pivoting. But that's definitely something I've seen firsthand in Students for Life, where we've had some things happen in our history that some of them are public, some of them aren't. But we could have very easily closed our doors. And to be honest with you, there were some times where it would have been a lot easier, a lot less stress had we just closed our doors. Instead of adapting to the situation, to the crisis at hand, and finding a way out of it and moving forward. And realizing that this may not be perfect. This may not be what we wanted. This may not be what we put in our plan at the beginning of the year, but this is the reality of where we're at. And this is where we need to go to get out of this situation. And so like I said, I've firsthand, I know can name multiple situations where we had to adapt. And if we didn't adapt, and if we hadn't adapted quickly enough, we would have missed out. We might have been shut down. There's also been cases where something's happened, was beyond our control. It's an external event in the news, and we were able to adapt our programs, our messaging, our fundraising. And we could see huge growth in the number of supporters and the number of prospective supporters, in the number of dollars raised. And it was simply because we found out it was coming. And instead of going to bed that night, I got on the computer, started writing a new program, called a meeting the next day, met with the staff and said, we know this just happened. Here's our response to it. Then I emailed the email vendors and the direct mail vendors and the telemarketing vendors and said, here's our response. And we beat everybody out of the gate with a response. We were able to adapt and also adapt quickly. And by being the first ones out of the gate, kind of the first ones in our kind of niche to have a response, we were able to see a higher growth rate. We were able to see more folks come on and latch on to the event we were hosting. Last one, share leadership. Now, this is something that's difficult, especially if you're a founder, right? Founder syndrome is real, but you have to be willing to share leadership. One, you have to realize you are not going to be the best leader. There's no such thing as like a perfect leader. You are going to have strengths and you're going to have weaknesses. You're going to have areas where, kind of in the middle that you can improve, but there's going to be things that you're going to be pretty weak in that even if you do improve, which you should try to prove always, you're never really good. It's never really going to be your strong suit. In order for your organization to grow, you as a leader have to continue to grow. You have to continue to challenge yourself to grow. But you also have to grow up your leaders on your team. There are not an unlimited number of hours in a day. And I have wished so many days that we had 48 hours in a day to get done all the things that I was expected to do or being asked to do or felt like I had to do. And I've tried. I have worked the 20-hour days. I frequently still do that. I slept in my office 2 days a week for a number of years when my children were very small. I've done those things. And I can tell you, there's still not enough time in the day. That in order for our Students for Life to grow, or for my organization to grow, I knew I needed other leaders. I needed other leaders, and I also needed other leaders who had different skill sets than I did, who were stronger in areas where I was weaker. Our Executive Vice President, Students for Life, Tina, is the yin to my yang, and she is my best friend. But Tina is gifted in things that I will never be gifted in. And she's good about telling me when I've done, when those things I'm not so gifted in are really showing, and then I need to do a better job of. She holds me accountable. Do you have somebody like that in your organization? Do you have leaders or potential leaders and staff members or volunteers or board members that you can begin to invest in? Do you have a hit by a bus plan? This is my mantra with our organization is, if Kristen's hit by a bus, does the organization survive? Because the real test of leadership is what happens when you're not there. And so that's a serious question. I think about that a lot. I was dealing with a situation just recently, and I thought, oh my gosh, if I wasn't here, they would have done this. They would have gone to print with this. They would have gone live with this. And that's very scary for me. Because if I had been hit by a bus, I know what would be coming out wouldn't have been the quality it should have been. And it would have been lacking something. And that's a training opportunity for me to invest in the leaders in our team to say, this is what was missing. And this is what is expected and what we need to be striving for. A good book for you to check out when talking about your leadership ability and how you can grow up other leaders. This book by John Maxwell, it's called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. This is actually the workbook. I love this because like you see, I have like paper clips in it. I copied it. I think I made all of our team members and all of our fellows, college fellows, go through this book. But it kind of gives you first an assessment of what your strengths as a leader are, where you have room to grow, kind of those middle areas, and then where you're really poor at. And Maxwell's kind of his advice is you need to hire for your weakness, because even if those things you're weak at, even if you get them higher up, they're still not going to be your strengths. And you need to hire folks that these are their strengths. You need to bring those people on your leadership team. And you need to continue to grow as a leader. And continuing to grow as a leader means you have to be able to delegate and empower other leaders. Your mission, your organization, your nonprofit, I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm pretty confident that it's larger than you. And you're going to have to rely on other folks, other team members to help you achieve that mission. And that means you have to share leadership. That means you have to build up other leaders, other spokespersons, and to know that you're all on the same team, that you're always on the same team. All right. So that's the end of session 1. I'm going to be back next talking about your vision, mission, and your values. So stay tuned.